And the John Birch Society, Extremism Never Dies, the Bradley Foundation, their CEO, the Bradley Foundation, has this $400 million pot of cash that they are passing out. $460 million, conservative honeypot devoted to crushing the labor movement. Lynn and Harry Bradley ran a company that back in the 30s, they were so radicalized when their workers tried to unionize, they called them communists. In 1966, they were successfully sued for underpaying their female employees and forced, ultimately, to change some of their hiring policies. But in fact, by 68, they had 7,000 white people working in their factories, 32 blacks and 14 Latinos. I mean, these are the guys who left the money that is funding this thing. And the CEO of the Bradley Foundation, Michael Grebe, was the chairman of Scott Walker's campaign and headed his transition. And they're funding the MacIver Institute, a conservative right-wing group that is sending out videos like crazy. And the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute got $10 million from them. And they even got an article in the New York Times this weekend. So there's a lot of information, misinformation flying around, shall we say, out there, and worthy of discussion. Charlotte Hayes is with us. She's with the Independent Women's Forum, conservative group that I'm sure you have a take on this, Charlotte. I read your piece called President Obama in Wisconsin, What May Worry. You comparing him to Alfred E. Newman?
I am, because anybody who doesn't appreciate what my new hero, Scott Walker, is trying to do, really doesn't have a good sense of what's going on financially in this country. You know, I have to give credit to the American thinker for Alfred E. President, but I think it perfectly sums it up. You know, he said that this is an assault on the labor unions. Well, Tom, one man's assault is another man's long overdue reform. I've been thinking lately how this mob in Wisconsin looks like the women of Paris marching on poor old Louis the 16th, except they're not marching on a king, they're marching on the taxpayer. They want more money. They want the taxpayer to give them more lavish benefits than the taxpayer has.
Well, okay, let's take these one at a time. First of all, in your article, you are quoting Charles Krautheimer talking about Louis the 14th's budget. I'm assuming, you know, Louis the 14th was the Sun King. He was all about the rich. He believed in the divine right of kings. I'm assuming that you're talking about Louis the 16th, who funded the American Revolution and ended up being beheaded. Is that right?
Golly, I think it's, let me see what
It's IV versus VI. XIV. Okay. In any case, assuming that you're speaking to Louis the 16th, because Louis the 14th, I don't think that there's very many comparisons. The longest reigning monarch in the history of France, actually. He eliminated feudalism, Louis the 16th, Louis the 14th, eliminated feudalism in France. He was a friend of the working people. It was Louis the 16th who funded us, went broke, and that led to the French Revolution. Now, I don't get the analogy. I'm looking at, secondly, the state workers have all said.
That's what I was thinking. You're talking 16th. We're talking 15th here, and really the thing that Krautheimer was saying was simply that he wasn't very big on deficit reduction. He spent a lot of money. Louis the 15th. It was the 16th who lost his head, and the 14th that was Le Roi Soleil, which I'm not pronouncing right. So basically, we're just talking about spending. There is no tomorrow, and this one is the one who said, après moi le deluge. And I think Obama is pretty much saying, hey, we'll spend. And après moi,
this isn't about Obama, Charlotte. This is about Scott Walker and a campaign that is being funded by a couple of right-wing think tanks that they are hoping could spread across the United States to destroy the labor unions because they're the last bastion of shoe leather and cash for the Democratic Party. And first of all, you said that this is about their making more money. The unions have offered to give in all. First of all, Scott Walker inherited. Let me just finish one sentence here, please, Charlotte. I let you speak. Okay. Scott Walker came into that state with a $46 million surplus. He gave $415 million in tax cuts immediately to his to the companies and to his buddies who funded his election. And then he declared that he had a $375 million deficit for the year. He's now talking about the biennium. He's stretching this out and all this kind of stuff. Then he declared that, and that became his justification. He created that crisis, number one. And number two, when you look at the wages of people in the private sector versus the public sector, annual compensation in the state of Wisconsin, People with less than a high school degree in the public sector make about $1,000 more than people with a high school degree. Above that, it falls apart. With a high school degree, you average about $44,000, $45,000 in the private sector, and you are about $1,000 less in the public sector. With some college, it's $2,000 less in the public sector. With an associate degree, it's $2,000 less. With a bachelor's degree in the private sector, on average, people are making around $80,000 in the public sector, around $60,000. And this is in the state of Wisconsin. With a master's degree, you make $80,000. You make $230,000 in the private sector, and in the public sector, working for the state of Wisconsin, you make $140,000.
Here's the deal, Tom. You're absolutely right in that this is bad for the unions, but it's bad for the unions because they have been doing collective bargaining.
No, I'm talking about how it's been for years. Union workers in the state union workers make less than they could make in the private sector. They are.
Are you saying a teacher who's making $100,000 a year could make a lot more in the private sector?
Teachers are not making $100,000 a year in Wisconsin.
There are some teachers making $100,000 in Wisconsin. Bear in mind, I don't care.
Louise, I'm sorry, Charlotte. I realize the McIver Institute has been cooking the books, and they've been releasing these reports. Those reports are phony. I defy you, Charlotte. If you can find for me any school district in the state of Wisconsin that will hire a teacher for $100,000,
I cannot put down the phone
I will personally.
I have read that.
I will personally bow down to you on television.
Well,
I'm sure you've read it. I'm told you the McIver Institute, with the $10 million that they got from the Bradley Foundation, is putting out this information. But if you've got a bachelor's degree, which is basically what it takes to be a teacher in the state of Wisconsin, you make $20,000 less than you make in the private sector.
Okay, Tom, let me ask you this. Here's what this is about. It's about whether or not these people, the union workers, government union workers, are going to pay half the cost of their pension and 1/8 the cost of their health care.
And they've agreed to.
You think that's unjust?
They have agreed to all of Scott Walker's demands.
And then they're going to lose the ability to have collective bargaining.
That's right. And why have a union if you can't have collective bargaining? Collective bargaining is democracy. I thought you were in favor of democracy, Charlotte.
Well, let me tell you what I don't think is democracy. I don't think democracy is going out in the streets and demanding more benefits. I don't think democracy.
You don't think that's how this country came about?
Your state, so you won't have to vote. Yeah, I think that they're
not demanding more benefits, Charlotte. They are demanding the right to collectively bargain. Let us, for the people who don't understand what we're talking about, because I'm afraid we're talking over some people's heads. Collective bargaining is where everybody in the union votes on what the position is that they want their negotiator to take. Their negotiator goes in and sits in the room with the state. They come to whatever compromise is necessary. They bring it back to the union members. The union members vote yes or no. That's called democracy. Scott Walker is an anti-democratic autocrat. He is the equivalent of Nikita Khrushchev.
Tom, let me tell you what collective bargaining is when it's public workers. They go into the governor. They present what they want. He gives them a lot, and then they vote for him, and they put a lot of money into his next campaign.
Doesn't seem how that's working.
That's not the finest of the democracy.
That does not seem how it's working in Wisconsin, Charlotte.
Well, they aren't going to. They
or in Ohio,
aren't going to be
or
putting
in Michigan.
any money in Scott Walker's campaign. I can guarantee you that.
I don't think they're going to put any money in any Republicans' campaigns because they get it. The Republican plan since Reagan came into office, and Bill Bennett articulated this as his Secretary of Education, was to destroy the public sector unions so that they could not provide shoe leather and money for the Democratic Party.
Well, I would like for the public unions to have a lot less power. They could give their money to who they want. But one of the things Scott Walter's against is mandatory dues that go to the unions whether you want to or not. Do you want that choice?
I think that deducting the pay. Yeah, I don't think that most people want to sit around every week or every month and have to write a check.